Welcome to this week's installment of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale with Don Henniger. I'm Don, and joining me as always is my podcast maestro, Kevin Maxwell.
I was going to say, I prefer Maestro. And there you hit it right on.
I knew you would like that one.
Let's talk about the movie later on.
I want to see it.
Yeah.
I saw you did a review, so it sounds pretty good. I bet our guest has seen it too. If she doesn't, she's going to be able to tell us about it.
Yeah,
anyway.
exactly.
You know why that is? Because one of the best things we get to experience with this podcast is featuring amazing people. And today we have another fantastic example of that. To say she's a person of many talents would be a gross understatement. Today's guest is a musician turned pilot, turned accidental entrepreneur, who, among other things, built an Inc. 500 company, and that's Denise Wilson, who's also the founder and board chair of the Scottsdale Symphnoinc Orchestra. She's a musician, too, on the oboe and the English horn. Denise, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today.
It's so good to have you in here, and just to look at, we're going to have some fun today, Kevin.
Yeah, I know.
Denise has got an amazing track record, so think about this.
Isn't that funny how we reach out to somebody for one specific story they're going to tell, and then we get like a whole plethora of other stuff, right?
We're going to unfold some scenes behind the curtain now. They're going to blow you away. So listen to this. So Denise, you founded the orchestra. You also were a flight instructor and a pilot, including flying jets as large as Boeing 737s. And then you also founded 3 desert jet companies, and now a new company, the Jet Agent, not necessarily in that order. That's a lot to talk about here, that's for sure. Yeah. And we're going to dig into that. But before we do, let's get to know you a little bit before we dig into all these cool things you've been up to in your careers. Where'd you grow up, and how'd your flight path land you in Scottsdale?
You know, I grew up in Southern California. Actually moved to Scottsdale just about 2 years ago or so.
Okay.
My music interest started early in junior high. I started playing the oboe. I had a great mentor who led me that direction, a music teacher. But my interest in aviation also came pretty early. My mom was an engineer at a time where there was very few engineers, and she worked for a subcontractor of Boeing. One day she took me up to Seattle on one of her business trips, dropped me off at the Air and Space Museum, and I got to spend the day there myself, while waiting for her meetings to conclude.
Yeah.
And so I'd say that was probably my first look and peek into aviation.
And so what brought you to Scottsdale?
What brought me to Scottsdale was after I exited my first businesses, the desert jet entities that you mentioned.
Right.
I was ready to get back into playing music again. So at the time, I was living in Wyoming, and I looked all across the U.S. and tried to determine where I would have the best opportunities to play in a community orchestra, and I chose Scottsdale.
Perfect choice. I love that. Yeah. So you've had 4 careers. So why don't we start, let's talk about it, what kind of one career at a time, and we'll start with music. So first you were a music teacher and then a performer. Talk about that and why the oboe?
Yeah, well, the oboe... It's a unique, interesting instrument with a beautiful timbre, and not very many people play it in junior high. So my band director saw something in me that I didn't see and suggested that I move from playing the clarinet to the oboe. So that's how I got into the oboe.
Okay.
And then he mentored me all throughout high school and helped me apply for a scholarship at the USC School of Music. And I think he may have had something to do with me actually getting admitted and getting the scholarship. But I went to music school, and really all because of him.
That's fantastic. Then you became a teacher?
I did. It was somewhat of an accidental, like a lot of things in my life, an accidental detour into education. My intention was to become a performer, but I needed a way to pay for my master's degree to continue studying the oboe.
Yeah.
So I took what I thought was going to be a part-time music education position. And on day one, when I arrived, I found out it was full-time. So I had to make a decision.
Where was that at?
Calabasas, a Viewpoint School in Calabasas. It was grades, I think, pre-kindergarten all the way up through 12. But I was in charge of starting from scratch an instrumental music program for grades 5 through 12.
That's fantastic. Wow. So you describe yourself also as a freelance musician that plays the oboe and the English horn. Is that right?
Yes, and that's what I was doing at the time. I was teaching in music. I was in music education, but at the evenings I was playing in several community orchestras, musical theater groups, and such on oboe and English horn at the time.
Well, you can't pay all the bills doing freelance music work, can you?
Only the really good players, and I was not one of the very, very good players, and at least I had the foresight to understand that at the time.
Kevin, this has to resonate with you. You had a music background.
I did.
You're drummer, marching band at Utah, all kind of cool stuff,
Yeah, I mean, I was in the Utah Youth Symphony, and so, classical music was in my soul. Yeah. Loved it. And then I'm also an aviation buff, and I was on the Airport Advisory Council Commission.
Right.
Oh, wow.
That's right.
Small world.
Yeah, right. So we probably have a lot of the same circles. But yeah, so you said you came to, partially came to Scottsdale because you want to play in a community orchestra.
Yeah.
Were you in the Scottsdale Philharmonic, or what community orchestra were you in?
I've actually, since moving here, played in the Tempe Symphony, the Chandler Symphony, the West Valley Symphony, and I did also play in the Scottsdale Philharmonic up until recently.
Okay. So that's what led me to reach out to you and kind of want to talk to you today. So you started the Scottsdale Scottsdale Symphony.
Scottsdale Symphonic Orchestra.
Symphonic Orchestra. There's a difference probably, right?
Yes, there is.
Explain what that is for our listeners.
Well, we are a 60 to 75 member group, depending on which repertoire we're performing. I'd say one of the biggest differences that we offer in our orchestra versus other orchestras locally is our level of transparency, the way we involve our members in the management of the orchestra, and the diversity under which we operate. So we program, and we're committed to continue to program, music by underrepresented composers as well as the classics. So at least 20% of our repertoire per year is music that is by traditionally underrepresented composers.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow, that's an undertaking right there. Because see, that is super interesting to me because I've asked people this question before because the hard part about classical music today in communities is that you have to walk a real thin line between what's popular that will sell tickets and get people to come to the auditorium and stuff that you want to play, the musicians want to play that is new. It's not the same old things again, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, because I mean,
there's only so many times you can play Beethoven's Ninth
I
Symphony.
was going to say even or Star
Never
Wars.
enough for me.
Yeah, I don't want to go see Star Wars with the movie playing behind it again and hear John Williams music. I'm just done with that.
Yeah.
So that's really great. So 20%. Mm-hmm. And you've written that into your guidelines then.
Yes, we have.
That's fantastic. So you guys had one performance so far?
We've had two.
Two, okay. Yeah. So it's still an up-and-coming group. I mean, you're brand new.
Yes, we are brand new. Our first concert was October 22nd. We just had another concert on December 10th. We're growing quickly. The word is getting out about us, and there's lots of buzz.
Okay, how did I miss the first concert in October? And I reached out to you and said I missed it. And then you had one last week?
Yes.
And I missed that 10th. One too?
Well, we're trying to get the word out, which is one of the reasons why I'm here on your show today.
So let's continue on that vein for a second. You're going to go monthly. You have a monthly concert at the Scottsdale Center for the Arts, correct?
Yes, our next concert's on February 18th.
Okay.
That theme is an afternoon of romance featuring music of the Romantic era composers.
Okay.
We have a concert on March 24th.
Okay.
The theme for that concert is Songs of America. So we're playing some really interesting music by, obviously, the classics, Dvorak's New World Symphony, but sticking with that same theme, a piece by William Grant Still, an American composer who wrote Mother and Child, and then an arrangement also by William Grant Still of Florence Price's, a piece by Florence Price as well. So there's some diverse music, but it's all based around, Songs of America.
Sunday afternoons at the Scottsdale. They're all Sunday afternoons, right?
Yes. And then our final concert of the year is on May 12th. We just announced that concert last week, and that is going to feature a really exciting celebration of the 100th anniversary of Respighi's Pines of Rome, which is not performed very often.
Very rarely.
So we're really excited about that. We're playing Rachmaninoff's Second Symphony, the Adagio movement.
Kevin's like jumping up and down here, man, you know?
The orchestra is very excited about what we have coming up for the season.
Kevin, you're now in the know. You can't now have an excuse for not going.
Rocky 2. You're playing Rocky 2. I can't believe it.
That's fantastic. So you have a website?
Yes.
Tell everybody what it is.
It's Scottsdale Symphonic Orchestra.org.
And one other cool thing I think that's going on with you guys, you're now also in auditions now for a conductor.
Yes, we have started a worldwide search basically for a permanent music director. Because we founded the orchestra in August, there really wasn't time for us to do a worldwide search, conduct auditions, and appoint someone within a month's time frame. Additionally, we really wanted the input of our musicians as we chose our music director because that's really the artistic leader of the entire organization. So we conducted initial interviews of approximately, I think it was 22 candidates that we had that applied from all over the world.
That's fantastic.
We narrowed that down to 5 finalist candidates who we have invited to be our guest conductor at each of our 5 concerts this year.
Then you're going to choose somebody from there, right?
Yes.
Wow, that's fantastic. I have so many questions.
Well, while you're thinking about one, talk about the business of the orchestra. How's it funded? How'd you get it started? Is it a 501c?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yes. We are an Arizona nonprofit as well as a 501c3.
Okay.
We did all of the work to set up the orchestra in August, basically. So it was a very quick process.
Yeah.
But we have a very strong board of directors. Right now we have 9 members on our board of directors. Plus we have a personnel manager, a librarian, a full complement of orchestra musicians. And I'm the president of the board for the orchestra.
So how do you budget for all that? Do you have sponsors or ticket sales and sponsors, or what's the mix?
Yes, we've been very fortunate to have donors come out of the woodwork immediately, just as we started. And also we've had very positive ticket sales. We had over 600 ticket sales for our concert last week as an example.
Going.
Yeah.
Kevin, they're onto something.
They really are. Well, that's how you almost fill the SPCA then, right?
Almost.
Wow.
Hopefully we will fill by the end of this season. And our big challenge is we're a brand new orchestra, and getting the word out that we exist has been a challenge for us.
So if you started in August, how did you do that? How did you pull everybody together so quickly? You must have been really entrenched in the musical community then.
I think there was a gaping hole in what musicians were looking for.
Okay.
I had heard time and time again colleagues share, I'd overhear comments about how they didn't feel respected, or they didn't feel like they were a critical or and included in the fabric of an orchestra that they were performing in. And so we really tried to start this orchestra in a completely different way than what some of the musicians had previously experienced. And we are constantly doing surveys of our musicians, asking them what they want from their experience. And we're very focused on what the musician experience is. Not obviously the audience experience to us is hugely important as well. But the way I see it is that if we don't have a good culture in the orchestra, how in the world can we provide an amazing experience for our audience? So we're very focused on the culture. Our founding principles were basically musical excellence, kindness, and respect.
Oh, love it.
And I'm finding that that's really resonating with the members of our orchestra.
See why. So are they all local musicians?
Yes, we have musicians that come from Mesa, Sun City, a vast majority in Scottsdale, but really all throughout the valley.
All the valley. That makes sense then. And where do you rehearse often? How often do you rehearse, and where?
We rehearse once a week on Thursday evenings. We have a beautiful rehearsal facility here in Scottsdale at Venue 8600.
Oh, yes, where the Scottsdale Association of Realtors are based.
Yes, they've been extremely kind and generous to us and offering space to us. Yeah. And we are doing our performances at the Scottsdale Center for the Performing Arts.
Kevin, if I were to sneak up there on a Thursday night, you think I could put an ear on the wall and listen to a rehearsal?
Probably, yeah. Rebecca will let you in.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
I would let you in. I would love to have you come here.
I would
orchestra.
love to hear. Just rehearsals would be kind of fun to hear a rehearsal. Don't you think?
To me, the rehearsal is always the most fun to me anyway.
Yeah.
To hear him play things over and over again and fine tune them. So
that collaborative experience is a great thing to watch.
That's so cool. Yeah. Well, let's wrap up the music portion of this and make sure we're done with that before we move on to the rest of the business and this wild career that she's had on the aviation side as well. Any further questions for her on the music side?
I think I got it. I'll ask her later.
You can come back later if you got something else. So I want to talk about your experience as an entrepreneur, but let's start with your second career, which was you were a pilot and a flight instructor. 20 years of this, flying all sorts of jets, including, like we said before, Boeing 737s. What was up with that? Tell me how you got into that and how that grew into a career for you.
Well, unfortunately, the hobbies that I have somehow turn into careers somehow. So I was actively in music and teaching at Viewpoint School when I ran into actually someone at an orchestral concert who I'd shared my interest in aviation with in a conversation. And he had shared with me, well, I'm a flight instructor as well. Why don't you come out to the airport with me and take a flying lesson, which I did. And I had an amazing time. He was a fabulous instructor, so he made me think I was doing the takeoff, flying the airplane, and landing all by myself. Which I learned some of his techniques when I became a flight instructor and made sure I implemented the same techniques.
Oh, yeah.
But So there was a few year period where I was trying to do flight training and being a musician and being an educator at the same time. And at some point, something had to give. And so I decided to pivot and become a professional pilot. And then January 2000, I got my first airline job flying for American Eagle. Unfortunately, that meant that I had no predictable schedule. So music had to be put aside for a while.
That's right.
I didn't really understand or know the answer to how long that would be sidelined, but it ended up being 21 years that I put my oboe aside.
Oh my gosh.
Did you really? Wow. Mm-hmm. And what were you flying for American Eagle? Dash 8s or?
That was the Saab 340 at that time. Yep.
Nice. Okay.
So what does that mean to somebody who doesn't know what that means?
34-seat turboprop transport category.
Twin engine turboprop.
That's a big plane. Yeah. That's no small plane.
It's a good first airplane.
For sure. So then you pivoted again, and you sort of had a third career, and this is where you founded Desert Jet, which it was a charter and a maintenance and a terminal operation company. Talk about Desert Jet.
Yeah. So in the time period between 2000 and say 2006, a very short period of time, I had been furloughed. I'd gone flying corporate aviation, so business jets. Airplanes had been sold out from under me, and the stability of I went to work for Aloha Airlines, an airline that had been in business for 62 years. So I finally thought, okay, I have a stable flying job now. And they ran out of cash 24 hours before they shut down. And
I remember that.
A year and a half later, I was out of a job. Yeah. So after that happened, I really did some soul searching and said, to myself, I need to stop having... how do I say this? My future depended on somebody else's decisions.
Gotcha. Perfect.
And
Kevin's like pointing because Kevin's resonating with all of this.
That's my story right there.
Yeah. So I started thinking, well, how can I build a career for myself as a pilot in aviation, and not only that, as a woman pilot in aviation, because there were some challenges at the time.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I started a management company. So what I did was I managed other people's airplanes for them, and I flew their aircraft when they needed a pilot, but also if they needed to move to a bigger or smaller airplane, I would sell their existing aircraft and then go find a replacement aircraft for them. So I was basically their consultant in everything that they needed in business aviation. And that was working fabulously well, too well. At some point along the way, probably around 2008, when the big three automakers went to Congress in their private jets, and we had this little crisis in aviation that resulted in, about half of all private jets in the United States being listed for sale within about a week's period.
Right, I remember that too now. Yeah.
Some of the clients that I had been working with came to me and said, I need out of my airplane. I can't sell it because I'll lose half the value. What can you do to help me to keep my airplane until things get back to normal? So what I did was I started a charter certificate, a charter operation, went through all the certification with the FAA and started a charter operation. And that helped all of my clients that needed, revenue to get them through the rough time, helped them keep their aircraft during that period.
Fantastic. Was this based in Scottsdale, at the Scottsdale airport?
No, this was when I was in California at the time. This was in the Palm Springs area, Thermal, California.
Thermal, right. Okay,
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So is that company still going now?
It is. Okay. Yeah, I ended up building a jet maintenance company to go along with it, and then I built a private jet terminal, FBO, the whole thing.
Yeah.
We were doing. Basically, it was a $20 million revenue a year company that I completely bootstrapped.
Into an Inc. 500 company.
Yeah, 5 years in a row we were on the
amazing.
Inc. 500
list. Founded that and built that up from nothing. Right.
Yeah. So I exited those companies. I had someone who was interested in buying the company, so I sold the companies in 2000.
Okay.
And then just started focusing solely on the piece that I really enjoyed while at Desert Jet, which was helping my clients buy or sell their aircraft and move into the next airplane.
And that's your fourth career, right? Where you created the jet agent?
Yes.
And that's what that business does?
Yes. So we help clients who are trying to figure out how to travel more efficiently, how to use business aviation, basically. So we work with a lot of first-time jet buyers, but also work with a lot of pilots who are looking to buy a jet for their own personal business use. Mm-hmm. So we help with that whole process. It's basically a turnkey process where we help analyze what the mission is going to be, help the client understand what the operating costs and the acquisition costs, what the residual value will be at the end of the ownership, planned ownership time, even help figure out depreciation and tax benefits and insurance and how to hire pilots and all of that. So it's basically a coaching aspect to buying and selling jets.
Now, where's that based?
That's here in Scottsdale.
Scottsdale, okay.
Yeah.
Kevin, this is a person who is not, if she's not been featured in every major newspaper and magazine in Arizona, then they don't know what they're missing.
Right.
This is an amazing story to me.
Absolutely, right?
Thank you. Well, I just moved here. Nobody knows me.
Well, we're going to start helping you to change that picture.
Well,
Thank you.
You've tapped into two guys who are the opposite. We know a few people in this town, so this is a great story to tell.
That's very kind.
And people are going to hear this, and I would be shocked if they don't start reaching out, because you have a heck of a good story. It's amazing. Now, the other thing we didn't talk about was your advocacy for women in aviation.
Yes.
And that started with your mom, right?
Yes. Well, because she was one of the very few women at the time that were in engineering. I was fortunate to have a role model to look at, is to see someone doing something like that at the time. I had gone to several of her work events, and she was the only. I think there was one other woman that worked at the company. It was basically just the two of them with hundreds of men. And so working in a male-dominated industry didn't seem unusual to me, I guess you'd say.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're forging some new paths for people now. I imagine some people are following your path, and women in aviation seeing this and saying, hey, we can do this too.
Yes. Over the years, I've hosted... one of the things that we did, I think that was the most helpful, was a group of women business owners in aviation. I started basically a panel that we took on the road, we call it, and we went to a Women in Aviation conference, and we presented basically the story of how we started our businesses in aviation, how we funded them, and got really into the nitty-gritty of the pros and cons and what it took for us as women in aviation to start those businesses. And that was hugely successful because all of us on the panel ended up mentoring several of the women in the audience who were interested in starting up their own aviation businesses.
I love it.
I was also part of a class that Embry-Riddle taught, where I shared my story with men and women that were interested in starting their own companies. But all of us that were on this course were women presenters. And so whenever there's an opportunity in aviation for me to have to show some visibility of what a woman can do in aviation, I'm out there front and center doing that.
You're leading the parade, my goodness.
When I started flying, 6% of all women, or of all pilots, were women. And that number has not changed in 25 years.
Really? Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
In the United States, that number has not changed.
So there
are other countries it's improved. India, for some reason, it's 11%. But in the United States, it's still 6% after all these years.
Well, we'll look for that number to go up with the great work that you and others are doing in this area.
Is that because of the general pilot shortage in America, or?
There are a lot of reasons, I think cultural reasons, why women might start in aviation and drop out. I think, the childbearing years is an issue for women because the environment in which you're flying in is not conducive to that. But also, I think having women start or get that initial interest in aviation, you need to see someone like yourself in order, I think, to get that initial kernel, that initial thought of, hey, I could do this myself.
Makes total sense. Yeah, role models we need. By the way, she also wrote a book, Kevin.
Oh.
Of course. Well, in your spare time, right? That's called The Insider's Guide to Buying and Selling Jets. Yes. And I think I saw that you're writing another one too, right?
Yes, I am. I'm actually writing, I don't want to call it a memoir. It's not a memoir, but it's basically a series of stories of challenges that I've gone through in my career and how I've pushed through them, hopefully to show others who might want a similar path how someone else has done it in the past.
I'd like to read that when you get it done, for sure. There's going to be some good stories to tell. You have an amazing story to tell, and I'm glad you're getting it down on paper.
Did you hear that she's opening up a Broadway theater company?
Oh, that's next. Is that next? Yeah. Okay. Step by step, right? So, do you actually ever sleep at night, or
I do.
Okay.
I get a good night's sleep.
You
Every
get a good
night.
3-4 hours every night, probably.
Oh, much more. No, back when I had Desert Jet, I never slept.
Okay. Right.
And so that change of lifestyle was very positive for me selling those businesses. But no, I have a very balanced life. Very balanced social life and music life and my business life.
Well, I love that you're only 2 years in Scottsdale. Scottsdale is lucky to have you here, that's for sure, with all that you bring to our city now and to our community. So what a pleasure it's been to get a chance to know you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on. This is such a beautiful place. I flew in here as a pilot for many, many years over the last 20 years. And I always thought that one day I would be drawn to the city. And so it's interesting how things have worked out. I just love it here.
Count us among that gang too. We've done a whole bunch of these podcasts now, and that's a theme that's resonated with everybody. We're here for a reason because it's a really cool place to be.
Yeah.
And it's the best time of year to be here. One of the best times to be here.
I like the heat. I'm good.
Yeah.
Let's ask her that in a couple, 3-4 years or so. After you get 5 or 6 years.
It does kind of wear off, doesn't it?
In this past summer, 115 for like 90 days in a row or some kind of crazy thing.
You forget I come from thermal California.
Oh,
it's cooler here than there. So this is gorgeous.
That's fantastic. Kevin, we've had a super time with Denise today, that's for sure. Any final questions before we wrap it up?
No, just thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing as far as this city is starved for classical music, and I just wish you all the success and thank you for delivering us a product that we can all enjoy and take part in.
Well, thanks for letting me share the story of the orchestra. I really appreciate it.
Denise, it's been a pleasure getting to know you, getting to hear about your story, sharing that with our listeners. We thank you for your inspiration, your entrepreneurial spirit, and the musical joy that you bring to our city. Kevin and I will be back with you again in the new year.
That's right.
With new podcasts and more amazing people just like Denise. It's all part of what we do here at Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale.